It's a foggy morning here, Thursday, about 8:30 in the morning. Thursday, June 14th, 2023. I've moved them to the sixth cell of 7 in this fourth section of 6 of this rotation that started on June 2nd. You might see these little white things all over the field. Those are spider webs. They're everywhere. You can see them now because the mist, the dew has settled on it. The grass here is quite deep. It's well over my knees. No, my boots. Up to my knees, I should say. But what I'm seeing here is that there's tons of insects and tons of spiders eating those insects. And so we have healthy soil that is creating life. There's a grasshopper. Grasshoppers are going to munch on the dead grass. If the new grass has enough sugar content, they won't be able to eat it and survive. That's the theory. Insects attack dead things or dying things, which is one reason why insects are a problem with modern farming techniques, because those plants are barely alive. They've been optimized for growth, and that's weakened them for every other aspect of plant life. In the past, crops have failed due to insects, but again, that's due to agricultural practices that weaken the plant. So insects help filter out the plants that aren't doing so well. They also return some of that protein, some of that nitrogen back to the soil. So, and they're a great food source for chickens and ducks. Right? Anyway, it's about 75 degrees. Humidity is super high. I feel like I've just taken a bath. Just stepping outside right now. The ground is really soft. It's very muddy. In some places it's like a marsh. But the grass is growing extremely well, as you can probably see for yourself. One more cell in this section, and then we'll be in the middle. And so next week, there's no trees in the middle of my pasture here in this next section. So I'm thinking of giving them access to the trees around the pond so they can take shade on the hottest days. It is going to get hot. Next week, it's going to get in the mid-90s, maybe the upper 90s even, which is a little bit too hot for their comfort. They should get in shade and try to cool off, you know. So that's the story. Not much to add today. Not much to comment on. Oh, there is one thing I wanted to comment on. I watched a video about the Electoral College. For my non-US friends, or for my US friends who never understood civics, the Electoral College is a compromise. That's the way we choose the president. We give more power to the states that are smaller than the states that are larger. But we also have a component that's in proportion to the population. And right now there's like 535 or something votes in the Electoral College, and only 100 of those are allocated to each state, 2 per state. And the other 4/5 is proportional based on how many people are in the state. The question arises, why do we even have the Electoral College? The answer is pretty simple. You go back and read what the people who made it wrote. The answer is it's a compromise between the populous states and the less populous states. The populous states wanted to ensure that their population meant something, and the less populous states wanted to make sure that they weren't completely powerless. Now you might be wondering, Is this the first time any such thing has been attempted? The answer is no. In fact, the HRE, Holy Roman Empire, had electors, certain princes, certain people of positions of authority in the empire that chose the next emperor. And other federal systems too always had a mechanism to ensure that excuse me to ensure that everybody could participate in the government process. It's not in the incentives of the smaller states to join a union where the bigger states will dominate everything. There's something that we call balkanization nowadays, and what it means is the minorities break away from the government. You're looking for your calf? The minorities break away from the government because the government no longer represents them, and they form their own government so they can be independent and sovereign. In my mind, the ideal arrangement of political power is that all power is retained by the individual, and very little power, if any, is shared among individuals. The Romans had a patrician system where, I don't know if it's a patrician system or a patriarchal system, I guess, where the houses had a head of house who basically wielded all authority in the house. They would go so far as to put people on trial and execute them for crimes. So 99% of the issues that arose in Roman society was resolved by the houses. The government had nothing to do. The laws were basically agreements between the houses not to interfere with each other and how to resolve disputes so as they don't go to war with each other. Keep in mind that in Roman society, if you had the money, you could raise an army. And that's pretty much how armies worked, was powerful and wealthy individuals would spend their money to hire people to put on armor and go to battle. So wars weren't so much waged by the people as by these powerful individuals. And from time to time they would come together to fight together, but mostly they were fighting apart. Julius Caesar in Gaul, you can read his history, his biography, autobiography. He was in Gaul because he was appointed that position, and so he brought his own army to fight and plunder in that area. And of course he claimed that he was expanding the influence and power of Rome, which was probably true, but mostly he was expanding the influence and power of Julius Caesar. And when it became clear that he was extraordinarily powerful and wealthy, there was a coalition of other leaders who conspired to limit his power because they were afraid that he would give them the short end of the stick. Roman history, you must understand, is periods of what might look like democracy, punctuated by periods of absolute dictatorship, where individuals were given absolute power over life and death of everyone in order to ensure the continuing state of the city of Rome. And I think it was Sulla was one of the last to wield such power before Julius Caesar. And Sulla, as is expected, determined that people were guilty of crimes against the state and thus subject to execution and the seizing of their assets, and their only crime being that they had assets. So Sulla was using his authority that was granted to him to not just accomplish the purpose that he was told to accomplish, which was to bring stability back to Rome, but also to enrich his own house's power. Now, why in the world people think that anybody goes to government with noble intentions is beyond me. If if someone was coming to me asking to use my money or something that I had of wealth, of importance, and they told me what they were really going to use it for, they would say, I'm going to borrow your stuff to make me more powerful and great. And maybe in exchange for your loaning of whatever it is that you have, I might give you a little cut. The government does the same thing, except on a grander and larger scale. And but they do it in the name of nobility or goodness or morality. They're saying, give us your money and your power so that we can ensure social justice or equality or fairness. Yes, absolutely. They're consumed with the idea of making life fair for people. They just need you to give up some of what you have accumulated and earned throughout your life and sacrifice some of your God-given rights on their altar. Otherwise, if you don't do that, it must be because you're selfish. Oh, no, you cannot keep what you have, because if you keep what you have earned and created, what you have forged through your life experience, if you keep that, you are a bad person. No, you must give it to me instead. And by giving it to me, you're doing good. This is the great lie that everybody uses. Every commercial on TV, every ad in the newspaper, every billboard says, give me something you got and I'll give you something better. And at least in industry or in the economy, we're free to break that arrangement whenever we feel like it's not in our interest anymore. Like I can cancel my cable contract, which I have probably decades ago now. More than a decade ago. Because the agreement was not honored by the other party. And my desires have changed and I no longer value the things that they were offering. But with government, oh no. If you determine that government has misspent your funds and abused the power that you've delegated to them, this is a beautiful back pasture though. If you've determined that they are unworthy to hold that power and influence, well, then you've become a traitor to the state, and we should take all of your power and money and lock you in a prison and maybe even separate your head from your body, because you are dangerous to law and order and justice and virtue and all these things. That's how government works. That's the great lie. There's a fiction that was invented. A fiction is something that's not real or not true. The fiction is the word the people. The people. As if there is something out there that has the mind and will of all the different parties inside the nation and somehow knows best what the people want and need and deserve. And this fiction is used today when people rise to so-called political power. They say, it's the will of the people that I obtain all this power and all this money and access to wealth, and that I can command armies and have them do what I want. That's what the people want. That's what they told me, because I asked them. I said, dear people, can I take your money and your power and your good faith and use it for my own selfish ends? And the people said, of course. Yes, we want nothing more than to see you do that. That's what they claim. So my idea for an ideal government is to eliminate that concept. If you are sovereign, that means as an individual you have no king over you, then why do you pay taxes to anyone? It makes no sense. Now you might say, what about the roads? Well, it's simple. There is a road I travel on every day, and other roads I use. I certainly want those roads to work. And if you told me we're not going to maintain those roads, nor are we going to allow access to you on those roads, I would be quite upset. But if you said, we're not going to maintain those roads or allow you access unless you pay for what you use, why, I would be quite happy with that arrangement. In fact, I might even look for ways to use less of those roads. And in this modern digital age, it's a fairly simple problem to solve. How do you charge people for what they use on the roads that they actually drive on? It's not at all complicated. You just assign each road an owner, and then have that owner collect a fee from people that drive on the road, and then have some system whereby people who do not pay the fee are not allowed access to the road. And that system may involve the use of rifles and bombs for those people who are quite persistent in abusing your resources. So the use of force is justified according to the Bible in cases of theft. And I left some food out for the dogs, and the calves decided to eat it. But of course, our noble and just and righteous government says you cannot steal unless you are the government. In which case, you can steal as much as you want. And if they disagree, you can beat them up and throw them in prison and even execute them and take more of their stuff because they didn't pay what you felt you owed them. So that's one way to do it. There's obviously more intelligent and elegant solutions to the problem. But did you get something caught in your throat? Or are you coughing? I guess it went down the wrong pipe. Anyway, that's my thoughts, is people maintain their sovereignty, and every contract is entered into only by persuasion and not by force. And when it comes to enforcing your rights, rather than calling up the police and saying, Mr. Police, would you please protect my rights for me, you just do it yourself. You know, there's verses in the Bible where it says people did what was right in their eyes. And I know that's been interpreted in many ways. And one of the interpretations is like, well, they must have done whatever they wanted then. But that's not what it said. It said they did whatever was right in their eyes, meaning they used their eyes and their sense of morality to figure out what was right. And then they did that thing. And typically the stories in the Bible and in Judges and stuff was that the people of Israel were doing something they weren't supposed to be doing, like worshiping idols. And somebody decides that, you know, when God said, hey, you're supposed to kill those people that are worshiping idols because they are a plague and they will destroy you. And they pick up a sword and decide to actually kill those people and do what God said. And then all of a sudden there's some kind of war. It's always weird to me that when Israelites decided to kill the idol worshippers, the Philistines got really upset. You ever wonder about that? Like why the foreigners got really, really angry whenever the Israelites said, hey, let's stop worshiping idols, everybody. And then the foreigners say, we're gonna punish you and invade and enslave you. You ever wonder why that is? Maybe those idol worshippers weren't exactly loyal to the people. You know, they were loyal to the foreign interests. And when they got caught and exposed, then the foreigners got angry and upset because they lost their power, right? Anyway, and then after the war and Israel finally wins, and everybody's free and happy, then it says something like, and then they did what was right in their eyes. And people interpret that as like, oh, they did stupid things, they did wicked things. But to me, it says something completely opposite. They paid attention to their own moral compass and executed the laws according to the dictates of their conscience, rather than expecting someone else to do it for them. So that's what I think we need as a society run like that. That's how the Romans got so strong, is they didn't sacrifice their political and physical and power. They were full aware that government was wholly corrupt, and the only reason somebody was in office was to further enrich themselves. And ultimately, the people in power could only persuade their people to do things that they couldn't force. They couldn't force people to join the army. They couldn't force people to pay taxes. They couldn't force them to do anything. They had to do it by persuasion. And that's what I think needs to happen. All right, guys, have a great day. Bye-bye.